welcome to another episode of Stories from WineCountry.com. I'm Pete Swanson, filmmaker from Leicester, Mass.
And I'm Jim Nicas from the Castle Restaurant, also in Leicester, Mass.
So what's happening this week, Jim?
Well, Peter, it's a funny story, but it really just shows what the wine industry is and can be. This is going back quite a few years, in probably 82, 83. There was a wine distributor, vice president, who was a very, very good friend of mine, John Horwath. Not someone you would see every day, but when you saw him, it was pretty much like you were together every day. It was that kind of relationship. A brilliant marketer. So this story kind of focuses on that. The wines from the Loire Valley, very, very unrecognized in the United States, unfortunately. Certainly, they are tremendous wines. And the Loire Valley runs from the Atlantic in Nantes all the way to the north central part of France. And it produces a wide variety of pretty incredible wines. This is a story of one of those wines that should not really be part of a story today, but it is. Patrick Ladoucette. Ladoucette is probably one of the biggest and best known Loire Valley producers. The Baron's family developed this property, and it's so incredibly well known. Their biggest push is from the Pouilly area, and they make Pouilly Fumé, which is a Sauvignon Blanc based wine that really is the epitome of Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc can be grown pretty much anywhere in the world. You have it in Italy and New Zealand and Australia, you have it in the US, you have it South America. But some of the highlight and most brilliant Sauvignons, from my estimation, are from the Loire Valley. So this gentleman, being the marketer that he was, decided when Patrick Ladoucette was in the Boston area, he was going to take 20 of the best restaurants and the people's spouses to lunch in Nantucket, which is quite an undertaking. So, charter a plane, okay, but now it's during the week. Every one of these restaurants has to be open at that, at dinner service. So everyone piles into a plane, fly to Nantucket. He calls ahead, has Jean-Charles Barrouet, who is probably one of the most recognized chefs from France in the U.S., open his restaurant, Chanticleer, which is, again, one of the highlight restaurants in Nantucket. He has them open a week early. Now, to open a restaurant that's closed all season to a winter season, to bring it back to life before it's due, it's quite the undertaking. So he cajoled this man to do just that. We flew in out of Boston, had lunch, and tasted the Ladoucette line, and we were back by 3 to drive home to open the restaurant for dinner service. Just a tremendous undertaking. This story kind of generates from that because some of these wines I've used before. I'd like to show one right now that belies anything that people think of Sauvignon Blanc or white wine in general. Ladoucette is the vineyard. This is the back label. This is the front label that's been destroyed. They all come wrapped in tissue. This actually got wet and it tore the label from it. On the cork, it displays the vintage. This is a 1993 Sauvignon Blanc, the Pouilly Fumé from the Loire Valley. So, we are really talking a 25-year-old Sauvignon Blanc. If you told me when I bought this that 25 years later I would be tasting this in front of a camera, I'd have to call you a liar. I think that I have a firm grasp on being able to extrapolate where wines are today and where they're going. This is a total anomaly.
So it's a mystery.
It is. It's and if it was one bottle that I tasted, I would say, okay, it's a fluke. But I've served this to several very good friends and high-powered wine people, and they're all just thoroughly amazed. So this is kind of where I'm going. We as Americans drink wine far too early, far too young. Would I recommend that you keep a Sauvignon Blanc for 25 years? No. But as wine develops, it changes, and that's why we here at the restaurant did Real Wine Thursdays all through the winter, is to open 25, 30, 35-year-old Bordeaux, Italians, California Cabernets, and offer people a 2 or a 4 or 6 ounce pour so that they could actually sense what real wine is, as opposed to, we call it grape juice. I'm not, demeaning young wines. They are brilliant. They're fun to drink too. But once you've tasted old wines, it's
it's pretty amazing. I remember doing a few of those, and it was just tremendous to try those. So, with a white wine, do you store it any differently than red wines, or
no.
age it any differently?
This is coming out of my cellar, and my cellar stays a pretty consistent 55, 57 degrees. And I would really like to because some of the people on that plane, I'm sure are going to be. And winemakers hate it when I cut capsules because they spend so much money on it. But, and it really is, it's more personal preference because in 1990, they switched from lead to fabric or tin or plastic. So people would always be like, and they did it because, someone thought that possibly the lead in a drip of wine, lead poisoning. Well, I've been drinking wine all my life. I never had a problem like that, but you do what the public would really want. So, first indication, the cork. It's not actually even fully wet to the end. But it's firm.
Well, it's a real treat.
Now, I don't know if you can really catch the brilliance in this as it off the light, but it's got that still green and kind of straw-like color. And on the nose, it's that chalk and mineral without that heavy fruit that many other countries tend to have with Sauvignon Blanc. Blind, if you were to taste this, I don't know anyone that wouldn't say, this is maybe 3 or 4 years old. So it's an area in France that does not get the recognition it should. A, B, the wines are a full gamut from Nantes, which is on the Atlantic Ocean, all the way to the central and northern part of France, and they make the wines of Nantes. Muscadet is the most famous, and it's a kind of shellfish wine. The French made a sauce with cream and shallots and butter and Muscadet, and they call it Nantes after the town. It's tremendous with fish. You move further in, you have wines of Vouvray and Montlouis that tend to be really soft, a little fruited, but again, not part of this story, but probably singly one of the most spectacular white wines that I've ever tasted would have to be from the late 90s. There was a single vineyard Vouvray from Maurice Audebert that was from the 1947 vintage. and the wine was a sweeter version of it, a more concentrated version of it, but the wine was absolutely spectacular. So, and then you move further inland, you have the wines of Saint-Cyr and Pouilly-Fumé, and then the reds of Chinon and Bourgogne. The area covers a spectacular amount of phenomenal wines that can lend itself to any kind of dining experience.
So is it the climate? What is it that makes this unique area?
It's the climate. I mean, this is one of the oldest growing areas in France. These people are people of the soil. They make the wine for that particular area, that appellation, and that you plant what grows best, you'll get what will be best.
So your friend who is a marketer, what makes a good marketer, and how many times you must get approached a lot of times for people trying to sell you wines?
I do. It's on a daily basis, but he was, and we'll develop this character because he was a character. There weren't any bounds. He wanted people to taste not only his wines, but wines in general. And he had a love of life that was incredible. He's one of the only people that I ever knew that carried his own caviar spoon in his briefcase, just in case.
Just in case.
And he unfortunately has passed, and there's a great deal of Boston and Massachusetts area chefs that either still have a Wales fluke tattooed, or I wear a lapel pin with a fluke.
So he wouldn't take just any wine. He would be very selective of the wines.
He worked in New York as a distributor, and he was with a Burgundy house. He was extremely knowledgeable. When he came here, he was representing that company. He ended up becoming part of over $200 million company in Massachusetts as their on-premise vice president. And like I said, he's just a brilliant man. He would use any tool in his arsenal to have you taste the wine and have you develop a belief in that. And if you liked him, you drank the Kool-Aid.
Wow.
If you didn't, you just you didn't.
Do you know how he got connected to Ladoucette?
Ladoucette was part of that portfolio that he joined, and but like I said, he was the type of person that could cross borders and make friends with pretty much anyone. So, but again, the focus is, it was a brilliant lunch, and Jean-Charles Barrouet is an old friend of my dad's and ours, and we've always had great experiences on Nantucket. But John Hoeth is his name. He developed a game plan to take 20 properties and make them really want to own these wines and to use these wines. And yes, it was marketing, because you fly you to Nantucket at lunch and taste the wines, and then you're back. But you had a sense of true dedication to not only the brand but to the wine industry.
Great. So this is a great story. Thanks for the lovely treat here. Cheers.
Cheers.
See you next time. Thanks.